Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you joining us today.
Yeah, really great to be here.
So you probably spend a significant amount of your time, we all do, really navigating this massive sea of information. You're clicking through complex articles, parsing heavy research.
Oh, constantly.
Right. But occasionally you encounter a digital footprint that seems almost deceptively brief. A short summary that barely fills a single page on Wikipedia.
A stub, basically.
Exactly, a stub. And our mission today is to take one of those seemingly brief source texts and just extract the vast layers of geography, the 19th century exploration, modern political boundaries, and deep-time geology hidden just beneath the surface.
It is packed with detail if you know where to look.
It really is. We are heading into the Canadian Arctic today to explore the Melville Peninsula. And to anchor us, the coordinates are 68 degrees north, 84 degrees west.
Right up there.
Yeah, that places us north of Hudson Bay, in an environment that is as harsh as it is geographically critical. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, it's excellent to be analyzing this material with you. The source text we're working with today is it's a perfect exercise in reading between the lines.
How so?
Because when you look closely at the geographical borders, the historical naming conventions, and particularly that densely packed further reading section at the end of the document, you realize this isn't just a set of coordinates.
Right.
It functions as a comprehensive microcosm of Arctic history, and honestly, an open-air archive of planetary evolution.
You call it a microcosm, but looking at the topological layout described in the text, it essentially looks like a massive frozen roadblock jammed between major bodies of water.
That is a very good way to put it.
I mean, what makes this specific placement so vital to the region? Like, if you're picturing it as a puzzle piece locked into the Canadian Arctic?
It comes down to how the peninsula is boxed in by highly active maritime environments.
Right.
So to the east, you have the massive expanse of the Fox Basin. To the west, the Gulf of Boothia. Directly to the north, the peninsula is separated from the enormous landmass of Baffin Island by the Fury and Hecla Strait.
That is a very intense name for a strait.
It really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then to the south, it's separated from Southampton Island by Repulse Bay and the Frozen Strait.
Frozen Strait, again, really painting a picture here.
Yeah, they are not subtle names. But if you look at those boundaries, you realize the Melville Peninsula is surrounded by treacherous, ice-choked waters on nearly every side.
Right, it acts as a massive divider.
Exactly, dictating the flow of ice and water in that whole northern Hudson Bay region.
And yet it isn't an island. The text points out one highly specific structural anchor on the southwest side.
Yes, the Ray Isthmus.
The Ray Isthmus.
That narrow strip of land is the only physical feature keeping the Melville Peninsula from being just another disconnected landmass drifting in the Arctic Archipelago.
It's kind of wild to think about, just standing there.
Imagine standing on that narrow isthmus. You are effectively at the edge of the world. It is a fragile, frozen tether to the North American continent.
Just barely hanging on.
Yeah, the geographical tension there is profound. You have this enormous peninsula pushing up into the Arctic Ocean, anchored to the mainland by an incredibly narrow land bridge.
And that land bridge is named after the explorer John Ray, right?
It is, yeah. It really forces us to think about how fine the line is between a continent and an island in these extreme northern latitudes.
Well, the mention of John Ray naturally transitions into how this jagged, hostile coastline was actually mapped in the first place. The source material highlights another explorer, William Edward Parry.
Yes, Parry.
According to the text, Parry mapped the east side of the peninsula between 1821 and 1823.
Just the east side.
Just the east side. That timeline alone is worth dissecting. 2 entire years dedicated to charting just the eastern edge of this landmass.
That timeline speaks volumes about the physical reality of the environment.
Right, because this isn't modern surveying.
Not at all. In the early 1820s, a naval expedition charting a coast meant dealing with wooden ships grinding against pack ice.
The sound of that alone.
Yeah, navigating uncharted shoals and enduring extreme overwintering conditions. The fact that it required 2 years just to define the eastern border of the peninsula, it highlights the sheer friction of the landscape.
It must have been agonizing.
It was a slow, agonizing process of inching along a hostile coast just to turn the unknown into a defined line on a map.
Which brings us to the psychology of that map making. Because when Parry finally defined this massive geological feature, he didn't name it based on its physical characteristics.
No, he did not.
Or even local significance. The text explicitly states it was named after Robert Dundas, the second Viscount Melville.
What's fascinating here is the bureaucratic reflex of the British Empire during that era.
The bureaucratic reflex, I like that.
Well, think about it. Viscount Melville was the first Sea Lord of the Admiralty in London.
Okay.
So you have an expedition enduring the most extreme freezing conditions imaginable for 2 years.
Scurvy, frostbite, all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
And the ultimate result is that the land is stamped with the name of the administrative boss sitting at a warm desk thousands of miles away.
So the map becomes a reflection of London's political hierarchy,
Exactly.
rather than the physical reality of the Arctic environment itself.
Precisely. It was an assertion of dominance over a completely foreign landscape. The authority of the Admiralty was so vast that Robert Dundas didn't just get this massive peninsula named after him.
Right, the text mentions something else.
Yeah, as the text notes, he also had Melville Island named in his honor.
2 major Arctic features, just for doing paperwork in London.
It is a perfect encapsulation of 19th century imperial cartography, where the act of mapping and naming was fundamentally an act of claiming ownership.
Imposing distant bureaucratic structures onto wild terrain.
Exactly.
Well, that imperial impulse to draw administrative lines over ancient ice and rock, it didn't stop with Viscount Melville. Those lines just shifted over time. So what does this all mean for the peninsula in the modern era?
It's a very different picture now.
Right, because the text outlines a major administrative transition that took place in 1999.
The 1999 transition is a massive geopolitical repositioning. Prior to that year, the Melville Peninsula was categorized under the district of Franklin.
Franklin, another explorer name.
Yeah, a name that, much like Melville, carries the heavy weight of 19th century colonial exploration, specifically echoing John Franklin.
The famous Lost Expedition.
That's the one. But in 1999, the map was redrawn to integrate the peninsula into Nunavut.
Which is a huge deal.
A very huge deal. This wasn't just a name change. It was the establishment of a vast new territory designed to provide greater self-determination for the indigenous Inuit population.
So a real shift in power.
It represents a total shift from an imperial holding to a modern indigenous jurisdiction.
But even within that modern jurisdiction, the text points out an interesting internal division. The peninsula isn't governed as a single monolithic block.
That is a highly revealing jurisdictional quirk.
I was hoping you'd catch that.
Yeah, the vast majority of the Melville Peninsula falls within Nunavut's Kikikalik region.
Okay.
However, there is a boundary line drawn right across the lower section of the landmass, the southwesternmost area, specifically around Repulse Bay, near that vital ray isthmus we discussed earlier, that actually falls under the Kivalik region.
Splitting a single geological feature across 2 different administrative regions.
Yeah.
It really shows how human governance operates completely independently of physical geography.
It demonstrates that modern administrative needs, things like resource management, local governance, logistical supply chains, they often require drawing invisible lines across contiguous ancient rock.
Right. The rock doesn't care.
The landscape hasn't changed a bit.
Right.
But the political overlay is constantly evolving to meet the needs of the people actually living there.
And the human element is so crucial here.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when reading about coordinates at 68 degrees north, surrounded by the frozen strait and the Gulf of Boothia, it is incredibly easy for you, listening right now, to default to a mental image of a completely barren, uninhabitable expanse.
Just endless white ice.
Right. But the source text specifically highlights active human habitation.
It does, and it grounds the entire discussion. The text lists the hamlets of Najat and Sanarajak, located directly on the peninsula.
Real communities.
And it also points out the hamlet of Igloolik, which is uniquely situated on a small island just off the northeastern coast.
Yeah, I saw that.
These communities are vital reminders that this is not an empty wilderness awaiting discovery, it is a lived-in environment.
The text also explicitly mentions the Igloolik airport right next to that island hamlet.
Yes.
And that single detail, honestly, it completely shatters the 19th century paradigm of total isolation. You have an environment that forced William Edward Parry into a 2-year holding pattern in the 1820s.
Trapped in the ice.
Trapped. And today there is a functional aviation runway connecting that exact same landscape to the global network.
The runway serves as a vital modern lifeline, for sure. But it also serves as a fascinating chronological contrast.
How so?
Well, think about it. You can fly into the Igloolik airport, step off a modern aircraft, and you are immediately standing on a geological foundation that predates human existence by an almost incomprehensible margin.
Man. Which brings us to the absolute deepest layer of our source material.
My favorite part.
I know it is. Because if you scroll past the geography, past the history of Parry and Dundas, and past the modern administrative shifts of Nunavut, you hit the further reading section at the bottom of the document.
Usually the driest part of a Wikipedia page.
Usually, yeah. At a glance, it just looks like a standard bibliography of academic surveys. But if you actually analyze the specific titles of the geological texts listed there, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it does.
The vocabulary points to a physical reality that makes the 1820s feel like a fraction of a millisecond ago.
The bibliography is essentially a vertical slice through Earth's deep time.
Yeah.
When you synthesize the geological epochs explicitly mentioned in those academic titles, you realize the Melville Peninsula is a continuous, exposed record of planetary evolution.
Walk us through it.
Let's look at the oldest references first. The texts mention the Archean Basement complex in the Lion Inlet area and the Archean Prince Albert group.
Now, the Archean eon isn't just old rock.
No.
It represents the deep foundational crust of the planet, dating back billions of years to when the Earth was still cooling and forming its initial continents.
Exactly. You have the absolute bedrock of planetary formation sitting right there at the surface.
Mind-blowing.
But the timeline in the bibliography pulls us forward. It references the Precambrian geology of the Prince Albert Hills, which covers the massive span of time before complex life rapidly diversified.
Right.
Then we see the Ephebian Penrhyn group.
Ephebian Penrhyn.
Yeah, which points to a highly specific era of intense structural and metamorphic change. This implies that the rock in the Lion Inlet area was subjected to unimaginable heat and pressure.
Just warping and crushing the continental crust over eons.
Crushing it entirely, yeah.
And then the list continues moving forward through time, bringing in marine history as well. The source cites the geology of Ordovician rocks.
Now, the Ordovician period shifts the narrative from that volcanic formation and metamorphic crushing to an era when ancient oceans were expanding.
And teeming with early marine life.
Exactly. The fact that Ordovician geology is present means the peninsula also holds the sedimentary memory of ancient sea levels and biological evolution.
So, purely based on the titles in this reading list,
Yeah.
you can trace a timeline from the bubbling, violent formation of the Earth's crust
Yeah.
through intense metamorphic warping straight into the sedimentary deposits of ancient oceans.
It's a complete story.
But the texts also address the very top layer, right? The actual surface terrain you would traverse if you walked out of the hamlet of San Rajak today.
Yes. The surface reality is captured in the references to Linda A. Dredge's work on the Quaternary Geology of southern Melville Peninsula,
Okay, the Quaternary period.
which is our current geological era. It's heavily defined by the recent cycle of ice ages. Her texts focus on surface deposits, upland block fields, till geochemistry, and glacial history.
I mean, those terms sound highly academic,
They do.
but they actually describe an incredibly violent mechanical process.
They describe the physical scouring of the planet.
Scouring.
Yeah. An upland block field, for instance, refers to high-altitude areas where exposed rock has been literally shattered into angular boulders by relentless, severe cycles of freezing and thawing.
Just blasted apart by the cold.
Over and over again. And until geochemistry and glacial history referred to the study of the massive amounts of sediment and rock that were bulldozed, crushed, and left behind by retreating continental ice sheets.
So if we synthesize that, it means the bedrock formed billions of years ago during the Archean eon was eventually scraped, gouged, and buried by massive glaciers during the Quaternary period,
That's the exact sequence.
creating the jagged coastlines and deep straits that Parry later struggled so hard to map.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means the Melville Peninsula is an incredibly rare geographical feature.
It's not just a large landmass.
No, it is a contiguous, open-air planetary archive. The tension we discussed earlier of the peninsula being boxed in by the Fox Basin and the Gulf of Boothia, tethered only by the Ray Isthmus.
Yeah.
That is the direct result of billions of years of deep-time geological violence, followed by the brutal carving action of recent ice ages.
It fundamentally changes how you perceive the map.
It really does.
What starts as a brief summary of coordinates 68 degrees north, 84 degrees west, it expands into a massive interconnected narrative.
A huge one.
We've traced the deep-time geology from the foundational Archean basement rocks up to the shattering freeze of Quaternary glacial deposits.
Yep.
We've seen how that resulting hostile geography forced William Edward Parry into a grueling 2-year mapping expedition.
Stamping the landscape with the name of a bureaucrat.
leading to an entire landscape being stamped with the bureaucratic authority of Viscount Melville. And we've tracked how those imperial lines eventually shifted in 1999 to the modern, indigenous-led administration of Nunavut.
Complete with the jurisdictional split of the Keequequelic and Quevelik regions.
Right, and the vibrant modern hamlets connected to the sky by the Igloolik Airport. It is an immense amount of history, governance, and planetary evolution concentrated in one distinct Arctic feature.
And yet there is one final critical detail embedded in our source text that recontextualizes everything we've just discussed.
What's that?
If you look at the top of the Wikipedia page for the Melville Peninsula, there is a warning banner stating that the article lacks inline citations.
Oh, wow.
And at the very bottom, it categorizes the entire page as a stub, a digital placeholder literally asking the public to expand it.
That is wild.
This raises an important question for you to consider long after we wrap up here.
I love this part.
If a physical location holding billions of years of exposed planetary history, centuries of complex geopolitical mapmaking, and the profound modern resilience of communities living on the edge of the frozen strait is reduced to a mere stub, lacking basic citations in humanity's largest digital encyclopedia.
Yeah.
How much of the Arctic's true granular reality remains entirely invisible to the digital world?
That is a remarkable thought to leave on. The gap between physical magnitude and digital presence is massive. A huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into the Melville Peninsula.
Thanks for listening.
We hope we've provided you with a new analytical lens to view not just the Canadian Arctic, but the hidden depths of the brief information you consume every day. Stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.